Well, we're in a pretty good spot here with the lighthouse behind, and I think we've seen a bit of a beacon for new learning with the kids with their video conferencing this morning. And you've been doing this for how long? It's a good length of time now, isn't it?
Yeah, we've been teaching young folks it'll be 4 years this November, so it's 2 months short of 4 years. They've been getting lessons every week in 4 primary schools in the southwest of Dumfries and Galloway.
And I mean, what stunned me watching today was obviously the confidence of the users. They were young children. They walked in. They were completely. The technology was completely transparent to them. They just used it. But I was really interested in the way it wasn't a lesson from a distance. It was something new. It was something better actually, because there was a mutuality of support in the room. They were swapping with each other. But there's also the really quite intimate relationship with the teacher at a distance.
Yeah.
I mean, have you seen that with all teachers? Was he a special bloke? Do you need an exceptional person?
Over the piece, we've had 4 different instrumental instructors. We've had a cellist, we've had brass instructors through Grant who saw today, we've had a woodwind specialist, and we've had a guitar instructor. They've all managed very well. They've all done really well with it. And Grant, particularly today, has done brilliantly with being the project from day one. We appointed him from day one.
He had that gentle intimacy. He came in, he chatted to the kids about what he'd done on the weekend, what they'd been doing, how they were. There were a little bit of repartee between them, and indeed again at the end. So incredibly natural. And there was a wonderful moment today when you picked up the control and just pressed the button to the screen, and they sort of fell out of the zone. They were in a zone where there was nobody on the planet apart from them and him in the screen, and suddenly it was like the TARDIS doors opened, and they're on an alien world, What's the limit? I mean, they were there for about half an hour, weren't they? Something like that. Well, I mean, what's the limit? Have you run it for an hour or for 15 minutes or?
We've had sessions that have gone on for maybe up to an hour. Sometimes we've had a masterclass linked with London Symphony Orchestra with Rod Franks, trumpet player. He's played music, backing tracks that the LSO have done, Star Wars and Harry Potter and such like. And young folks in secondary schools have also engaged in it, because we've got a video kit in some of the secondary schools as well. And some of them at the more senior end, when they're preparing for their higher music exams, have benefited from masterclass sort of tweaking, as it were.
I thought the differentiation was stunning. The way he was, he knew exactly where they were and how ambitious he might be for them. But more importantly, he knew how ambitious they might be for themselves, and so did they. So there was no sort of sense of, I'm best. There was a little cohort of students who were all moving forward together, and we're helping each other. It was quite remarkable.
It's an excellent ethos and team spirit that's been built up over the years, and much of that's been down to the ethos created in the school by the teachers, and indeed the head teacher. Liz and Drummore has done a super job with creating an environment where the youngsters are, leaders of learning in the classroom. They're not having to be prompted.
No, I mean, one of her many top tips was, trust the children. She was astonished at how confident they were with the technology and had learned to stand back. But you do need that. You crucially need that teaching expertise to set it up and make it work. And of course you do. Well, I mean, we're not talking about bandwidth to burn here, are we? That wasn't the.
No, we're working. We're not on broadband at the minute. We're hoping to be on that soon. We're on ISDN 6, which is effectively 6 telephone lines. Video conferencing in the past, maybe 5-6 years ago, was typically ISDN 2. So we're really talking about a bandwidth that allows good quality image and sound.
I thought that the really telling point was that he could see their fingering. There was a moment early on when he was saying to one of the girls, hold your instrument slightly differently, put your hand there, and it was just very, very natural, as though he was in the room. And they could see when he was playing pieces, they could see whether he was, getting it with his lips or his tongue or his fingers quite clearly. And we were on a flat panel screen, weren't we? It wasn't the world's biggest projector. No. And I quite liked the flat panel screen. There was more intimacy to it, I thought.
Yes.
He was about the right scale. He looked like a person, not a monster. Which was pretty cute. I mean, here we are. We're about as far south west as you can go in Scotland.
We're nearer Belfast than Dumfries. Yes.
Gosh, as I thought. And indeed the Isle of Man just over there.
Yeah, just over there. Yeah.
But how far could this go? I mean, what struck me watching I never thought to ask was, where was he? You know, it was only when we got in the car afterwards,
Yes.
he said, by the way, he was in Dumfries, which is
Yes.
about, well, it's a couple of hours away, isn't it?
It's a couple of hours away. It's
hours.
about 90 miles away from where he was teaching.
But he could have been in Auckland or Wellington or
He could have been
anywhere.
9,000 miles away, and the effect would have been the same.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it actually didn't matter. There was no sense of distance there at all. And I
No.
thought, nor with the students. I thought
No.
the way they came in and were immediately, you know, watching him and looking at him.
No.
And,
But at the end of the day,
joking with him. You know.
that's right. But at the end of the day, the quality of teaching and learning that's going on is determined very much by the teacher, by the instrumental instructor in this case, Grant, doing that. And you can't mask or disguise or improve that through technology.
No. But I mean, what was encouraging was he wasn't a. I mean, you've had superstars talking to them, which is
Yeah.
in terms of self-esteem.
Yeah.
This man has played on the Star Wars theme
Yes.
tune, you know, and I'm talking to him. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Well, that's not scalable. I mean, there aren't. You
No.
know, there are a lot more children than there are superstars. But
Yes.
you know, he was a regular guy, albeit I thought a very gifted,
Yes.
comfortable teacher. But
Yeah.
we've got a lot of gifted, comfortable teachers around.
We have.
Just they don't happen to be where the children are when they want to play music or other things too. And
We have.
the children were saying earlier they wanted to do French. So how scalable is this? Are there any limits?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, basically, there's the infrastructure costs of buying the kit and investing in that. Then there's investing in the training. But the potential of the thing is absolutely massive because it can save in travel expenses, people's travel time. Most people, and we've had 4 different instructors, have a very successful experience with it. It's not just one individual. Perfectly able for most teachers, if they have the will and the
Well, and
you
there are techniques because
Yeah.
you're not going to go off to a teacher training establishment to learn how to do. I mean, one of his really wise things was right early on when the students were new. He stuck posters on his screen with their
Yes.
names on, so
Oh,
as he
yes.
looked at the screen, he could see
Yes.
who they were, which is way more natural than asking them to wear a
Absolutely.
Barry Humphries style badge, with their
Yeah,
name written.
absolutely,
Huge.
yes.
So swapping tips with each other
Yes.
would be necessary. But I mean, it just seems to me the sky's the limit in terms of scale.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have a go at language teaching next. That's
We're looking at a range of things. We're looking, for example, even at minority subjects where youngsters are, there's maybe only 2 people in a biology advanced higher class or an England equivalent of an A-level class or whatever. And maybe there isn't a teacher that can take youngsters to that level in that particular school. Well, they could get the lesson over video level.
I thought the big difference here, we've seen lots of distance teaching, and there've been lots of lessons delivered by video. I thought what was different here was the size of the group, the intimacy of it, the relatively small time that he put into his time with them, but it was high quality input. Setting particular targets for each one, differentiating clearly
Absolutely.
with each one, and leaving them to support each other
Yes.
for a week, and he'd come back and he was helping them to help each other
Yeah.
in a very 21st century way, I think. And it seemed to me we were looking at something here more than the old video conferencing model from
Yeah.
the 80s and 90s. You know,
Yes,
I think we were looking at a more distributed model of learning, which I think was really interesting.
Okay. So you've enjoyed your day here today, Stephen?
How can I not? You look at the weather. They tell me it's like this all the time. But look how green the grass is. I'm not fooled. I'm just lucky.
Okay. Right, thanks very much. Thank you. Cheers.